The moment you open your mouth to explain yourself, you have already lost. Picture it. A snide remark across the Thanksgiving dinner table. A sudden, sharp question doubting your competence in the cold boardroom. A manipulative, twisting text from your lover. Instantly, you feel the heat rise in your chest. Your cortisol spikes. Your primal brain screams at you to defend, to clarify, to justify. So you speak. And right there, you just handed them your throat. They are not listening to your truth. They are judging you by your desperation. The one who explains is the one who submits. So why do you do it? Why, when confronted with even the slightest hint of accusation, does your brain hijack your tongue? Why do you rush to fill the silence with a desperate stream of words? It is not because you are weak-minded. It is because you are biologically and psychologically hardwired to survive. Let us strip away the illusion of your conscious control for a moment. When someone challenges you, your amygdala does not perceive a simple conversation. It perceives a predator. Deep in our evolutionary past, being misunderstood by the tribe meant being cast out, and being cast out meant certain death. Your nervous system still believes this. Your body floods with adrenaline. Your heart rate accelerates. You speak, you clarify, you justify, because your primal brain thinks you need to do this to stay alive. But we are no longer wandering the wilderness. We are navigating a modern world where this primitive instinct to explain has been entirely weaponized against you by those who understand power. To truly grasp the depth of this betrayal of your own biology, we must dig up the roots of your deepest conditioning. We have to go back to the beginning. Think back. You are 5 years old. You are standing in the middle of a brightly lit American classroom. Looming over you is a teacher, an authority figure, an absolute monarch of your tiny, fragile universe. They look down at you with cold eyes and accuse you of something: a stolen toy, a broken rule, a pushed classmate. Do you remember the suffocating panic? Do you remember the heat rising in your cheeks? In that terrifying moment, you realized something profound. You realized that this giant towering over you held the absolute power to punish, to isolate, and to shame you. Your survival depended entirely on their mercy. So what was your only weapon against that overwhelming power? Explanation. You scrambled to present your case. I did not touch it. It was already broken. I was just standing there. You begged for them to see your truth. You pleaded for their understanding. And the terrifying part is that it worked. You learned an incredibly dangerous lesson in that classroom. You learned that authority figures hold a monopoly on reality. You learned that your safety depends on convincing the person in power that you are inherently good. You built a psychological framework where validation from an external judge is the only shield you have against destruction. That is the childhood trap. You traded your power for permission to exist comfortably. The ultimate tragedy is not what happened to you as a defenseless child. The tragedy is the psychological vacuum you are creating right now. Look at yourself today. You are physically a grown adult. You pay bills, you drive cars, you navigate complex social hierarchies. Yet, the moment conflict arises, you are still operating the emotional software of that frightened 5-year-old. When your boss sends a vague email questioning your choices, when your partner cynically challenges your memory of an event, or when a completely nameless stranger on the internet insults your opinion, you immediately revert. You think you are defending your honor. You think you are standing up for the truth. You are not. You are desperately trying to prove your innocence to a phantom teacher who no longer exists. By rushing to explain your motives, you instantly elevate the other person to a pedestal of absolute authority. You voluntarily hand them the gavel. You validate their right to question your reality. You prioritize the desperate need to be understood over the undeniable demand to be respected. A king does not explain his decrees to a peasant. A lion does not justify its hunting tactics to a gazelle. Power does not explain. Power simply is. Every time you over-explain, you broadcast your internal belief that you require their approval to be valid. You emit a scent of submission that every predator in the room can smell. Stop giving away your psychological sovereignty to people who have not earned the right to sit on your jury. You grew up, but your psyche did not. You are turning every stranger into a judge. Let us shatter the most pathetic lie you have been fed since you were young, the lie that the truth will set you free. You have been conditioned to believe that if you just explain your side clearly enough, if you just present the facts logically, the other person will suddenly see the light. You believe that social interactions are like a courtroom. You think there is a blindfolded judge sitting in the sky, weighing your evidence, ready to bang the gavel and declare you innocent. So what do? You bring receipts. You pull up old text messages. You present data. You construct a meticulous timeline of events to prove you are right. Stop it. It is exhausting, and it is entirely useless. There is no courtroom. There is no judge. There is only power, and the person who controls the frame. When you bring evidence to a psychological knife fight, you have already bled out. You are operating under the delusion that the attacker cares about objective reality. They do not. They care about control. They care about making you dance to their rhythm. The moment you start presenting your little screenshots and your logical arguments, you are validating their premise. You are acknowledging that their accusation is worthy of a trial, and you have just volunteered to be the defendant. You are playing their game, on their turf, by their rules. In the realm of dark psychology and social dynamics, this is called entering their frame, and the person who controls the frame controls the reality of the interaction. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this brutal truth centuries ago. He knew that power does not stem from moral purity or objective facts. Power stems from the perception of absolute authority. You need to carve this into your mind. Power does not come from being right. Power comes from being the one who dictates the context. The one who holds the frame is the one who holds the leash. When you explain yourself, you are handing the leash over and begging them to pull it. You are stepping into their constructed reality and asking for a permit to exist there. Think about the hierarchy of the natural and historical world. Does a king descend from his throne to present a defense to a peasant, justifying his sovereign decisions? Never. The king simply issues the decree. The decree is the new reality. Does a lion pause in the tall grass to explain to the gazelle why it needs to eat today? No. The lion acts, and the gazelle is simply subject to that action. Kings do not explain. Lions do not justify. They operate entirely within their own impenetrable frame. When you lower yourself to over-explain your actions to someone who is actively trying to dominate you, you are instantly stripping off your crown. You are morphing from the apex predator into the prey. You must violently sever the emotional cord that ties you to the need for validation. You are still infected with the disease of wanting to be understood. You want them to look into your soul, see your good intentions, and absolve you. But in a world of social predators, the desire to be understood is a terminal vulnerability. It makes you pliable. It makes you weak. It makes you a puppet, and your desperate, breathless explanations are the strings they use to make you dance. You must replace the desire to be understood with an ironclad demand to be respected. Understood means they see your inner workings and decide if they approve of your truth. Respected means they recognize your boundary and feel the immediate consequence of testing it. Respect does not require agreement. Respect does not even require rot. Respect only requires a demonstration of unwavering power. And nothing demonstrates power quite like the absolute, chilling refusal to justify your own existence. There is no supreme court of human interaction waiting to hear your case. There is only you, your unbreakable frame, and the silence you are about to weaponize. You know the trap. Now you must learn how to break it. We begin with the most devastating tool in the Machiavellian arsenal. Tactic number 1. Weaponized silence. I am not talking about the silence of a victim who is too terrified to speak. I am talking about the calculated, suffocating silence of an apex predator. This is the advanced grey rock method. You do not just become uninteresting to your attacker, you become a psychological vacuum. You become a force that consumes their ego and reflects their insecurities back at them. Picture it. You are in a high-stakes meeting in a glass-walled corporate boardroom. The air conditioning is humming. The tension is palpable. Across the mahogany table, a senior colleague or your manager decides to make a play for dominance. They look at you, smirk slightly, and drop a verbal grenade in front of everyone. You have been acting incredibly selfish on this project. You are simply not a team player. Let us look at defensive you, the wounded child, the prey animal. Defensive you immediately feels the heat rise in your chest. Your cortisol spikes. Your brain screams at you to provide evidence of your innocence, so you open your mouth and you bleed. What do you mean, you say? I stayed until 9 on Tuesday. I sent the data analysis before the deadline. I even covered for the entire marketing team last week. You speak, you clarify, you justify. And what happens? Look at your attacker. They are leaning back. Their arms are crossed. They are practically glowing. They are not listening to your meticulous timeline. They do not care about your facts. They are drinking your desperation. By listing your good deeds, you validated their right to judge you. You stepped entirely into their frame. They are the king, and you are the peasant begging to keep your land. It reeks of weakness. Now, let us rewrite the script. Enter Machiavellian you. The colleague leans forward and issues the exact same accusation. You are selfish. You are not a team player. Here is your new protocol. You do not flinch. You do not gasp. You stop typing. You stop writing. You slowly turn your head and look them dead in the eyes. And you do absolutely nothing. You do not nod. You do not shake your head. You deliver a dead, unblinking stare. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Do you know what happens in that silence? It is not an absence of noise. It is a weapon of mass destruction. Human beings are biologically wired to fill conversational gaps. We rely on the rhythm of action and reaction to feel socially safe. When you refuse to provide the expected emotional reaction, when you deny them the defense they were counting on, you create a massive, terrifying psychological vacuum in the room. And human nature absolutely abhors a vacuum. Watch the face of your attacker in those 5 seconds. The arrogant smirk will melt. The confident posture will crack. You have just stripped away all of their power. They threw a punch, and it hit empty air. Without your defensive words to legitimize their attack, their accusation suddenly hangs in the dead air of the boardroom. It sounds petty. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds entirely exposed. The crushing psychological pressure instantly shifts from your shoulders back to theirs. The attacker will panic. They will feel the suffocating, unbearable weight of your silent judgment. To relieve that agonizing tension, they will inevitably start talking again. But watch the shift. They will not be attacking you anymore. They will be backtracking. They will stammer. I mean, not selfish exactly, just maybe a bit hyper-focused on your own metrics. I just thought perhaps we could collaborate a bit more moving forward. Look at what you just achieved. In 5 seconds, without uttering a single syllable, you forced the attacker to justify their own attack to you. You flipped the power dynamic instantly. You became the judge. They became the scrambling child. You did not have to prove you were a team player. You only had to prove that you are untouchable. When confronted, your default setting must be stillness. Do not give them the data they are fishing for. Let them drown in the terrifying void of your indifference. Silence reveals nothing. It is a dark mirror. Let us address the reality of the battlefield. Silence is a devastating weapon, but sometimes silence is not an option. Sometimes you are backed into a corner, in front of an audience, where a verbal response is socially mandated. When you are forced to speak, you do not retreat into defense. You step into a state of amused mastery. You use the dark psychology technique of agree and amplify. You become a practitioner of verbal aikido. What exactly is amused mastery? It is a psychological fortress. It means you view your attacker not as a legitimate threat, but as a confused toddler throwing a tantrum in the middle of a supermarket. You do not feel anger. You do not feel fear. You feel a mild sea-assurance at their E-Salsa in height. to pathetic attempt to disturb your internal peace. You look down at them from a height of absolute self-assurance. They are playing in the mud, and you are refusing to get your hands dirty. Picture the scenario. You are at a tense holiday dinner. An insecure relative, let us call him Uncle John, decides to elevate his own status by dragging yours down. He smirks over his wineglass and drops a heavy accusation in front of the whole table. You are completely obsessed with money. You care more about climbing the corporate ladder than your own family. The prey animal inside you wakes up. Defensive, you want to shrink. You desperately want to correct his misconception. You want to say, "No, I am not greedy at all. I am just trying to build a stable future. I donated to charity last month. I care about this family. I really do." Stop right there. Do you hear it? It is the squeak of the mouse. By trying to prove you are a good person, you just handed him the gavel. You validated his right to judge your morality. You entered his frame, and you lost. Now, let us apply Aikido. In martial arts, when a heavyweight throws a massive punch, you do not block it with your face. You grab their wrist and pull them violently in the exact direction they are already moving. You let their own aggressive momentum destroy their balance. Enter Machiavellian you. Uncle John calls you a greedy, money-obsessed opportunist. You do not flinch. You do not scowl. You smile. A slow, deeply condescending, relaxed smile. And you agree with him completely. Then you amplify his accusation to the point of absolute comical absurdity. You look him dead in the eye and say, "Oh, absolutely, John. It is getting entirely out of hand. I am actually having a giant metal vault installed in my basement right now. The blueprint is to fill it to the ceiling with gold coins so I can dive into it every morning exactly like Scrooge McDuck. I will be sure to let you know when the construction is finished so you can come see it." Look at the psychological devastation you just caused. You did not defend your character. You took his insult, painted it neon pink, and wore it as a crown. You short-circuited his entire neurological loop. He wanted a fight. He wanted you to bleed insecurity so he could feel superior. Instead, you gave him a cartoon. Do you know how utterly disarming that is? You cannot insult a person who enthusiastically agrees with the insult and turns it into a joke. It neutralizes their venom instantly. Uncle John is left standing there, holding an empty gun, looking like an absolute fool. The tension in the room breaks. People will laugh, but they will not be laughing with him. They will be laughing at him. You stole his power and used it to entertain the room. Robert Greene wrote in the 48 Laws of Power, Law 25, "Recreate yourself. Do not accept the roles that society foists on you. Forge a new identity. When you explain yourself, you are letting the attacker sculpt your identity. You are letting them define your boundaries. When you agree and amplify, you take the clay out of their hands and smash it over their head. You refuse to be the victim in their narrative. This tactic requires a ruthless detachment from your ego. You must kill the part of you that cares about their inaccurate perception. Let them think you are greedy. Let them think you are selfish. Let them think you are arrogant. Their thoughts are not your prison. Their thoughts are your playground. You dictate the emotional weather of the room. By treating their vicious attack as a source of personal amusement, you demonstrate a level of social supremacy that cannot be faked. The next time they try to hand you a loaded insult, do not drop it. Catch it, juggle it, and toss it back with a smile. Now we reach the final and most sophisticated maneuver. Tactic number 3, the complete reversal of the courtroom. Up until now, we have neutralized the attack. Now, we are going to usurp the throne. We are going to take the gavel from their hands and force them to sit on the witness stand. You achieve this through clinical psychoanalysis and a dark psychology technique known as fogging. When a predator attacks, they are making a massive assumption. They assume they are the judge, and you are the defendant. The moment you answer their loaded question, you accept the role of the accused. You must never answer an attacking question on their terms. Instead, you analyze the mind of the person asking it. Picture this. You walk into a morning meeting 10 minutes late. A hostile coworker sees an opportunity to diminish your status. They snap at you in front of the team. You are always late. You have absolutely zero respect for anyone else's time here. Defensive, you immediately panics. You feel the collective gaze of the room. You revert to the frightened child. You start listing excuses. I am so sorry. The highway was a parking lot. My alarm did not go off. I swear I left the house on time. You are begging for clemency. You are hoping the judge will show mercy. Erase that behavior. Enter Machiavellian you. You do not rush. You pull out your chair. You sit down. You calmly arrange your notes. You look at the co-worker, not with anger, but with the cold, detached curiosity of a psychiatrist looking at a deeply troubled patient. You do not apologize. You do not explain the traffic. You look them in the eye, and you ask a question about their psychological state. You say, "Why does a minor delay trigger such a severe emotional reaction from you? Are you feeling overwhelmed with your workload today?" Watch the absolute collapse of their frame. You did not answer the accusation. You bypassed the attack entirely and put a spotlight directly on their emotional instability. You just demoted them from a self-appointed judge to a psychiatric patient. They are no longer interrogating your punctuality. They are suddenly forced to defend their own emotional regulation in front of the entire room. You took the gavel, but what happens when the attacker uses a hard fact to deliver an insult? What happens when you actually did make a mistake? This is where you deploy the fogging technique. Imagine throwing a heavy stone into a thick, impenetrable wall of fog. There is no crash. There is no resistance. The stone simply vanishes into the mist. You must become the fog. Imagine your manager throws a report on your desk. They look down at you and say, "You messed up the financial data on page 4. You are completely useless at this job." Defensive, you tries to separate the fact from the insult by arguing, "I am not useless. I just misread one cell on the spreadsheet. I can fix it right now." By fighting the word useless, you validate it as a topic of conversation. You swallow the poison. Machiavellian you becomes the fog. You look at the document. You look back at the manager. You agree with the undeniable fact, and you grant absolute zero existence to the emotional insult. You speak with a slow, flat, unwavering tone. You say, "You are correct. There is a calculation error on page 4. I will update the file." And then you stop speaking. You do not defend your competence. You do not apologize for your existence. You simply acknowledge the physical reality of the typo. By completely ignoring the word useless, you strip it of all its power. You demonstrate that their emotional outbursts and petty insults cannot penetrate your psychological armor. You cannot punch a cloud. When you refuse to engage with their disrespect, their anger starves to death. You maintain absolute internal stability, and they are left choking on their own venom. But understand this, all the psychological tactics in the world are entirely useless if your internal foundation is rotten. You can memorize the scripts, you can practice the dead stare, but if you are still secretly terrified of being judged, the predator will smell it. We must confront the darkest part of your psyche, your shadow. An insult is just a vibration of air. It has no physical mass. It only causes you agonizing pain when it strikes an unhealed wound you are desperately trying to hide. If a stranger calls you a purple alien, you do not launch into a defensive explanation. You laugh, you walk away, because you know with absolute certainty it is not true. But if someone calls you inadequate or weak or a failure, and your heart suddenly hammers against your ribs, it is not because they are powerful. It is because a deeply frightened part of your own mind actually agrees with them. You are not defending yourself against the attacker. You are defending yourself against your own shadow. To become truly untouchable, you must do the brutal work of self-knowledge. You must drag your insecurities into the light and own your flaws so violently that no one can ever weaponize them against you. Theory means nothing without action. It is time to test your spine. I am giving you a 7-day challenge. The protocol is absolute. For the next 168 hours, you are strictly forbidden from defending yourself. No justifications, no context, no evidence. If you arrive late to a meeting, you simply say you are late. If you spill a coffee, you say you spilled a coffee. When someone actively questions your motives, you give them the terrifying void of your silence. Watch how desperately your frail ego screams to be understood. Let it scream, let it starve. Kill the child seeking a teacher's permission and forge the adult who dictates the frame. I am not going to ask you to like this video. I will not beg for your subscription like a desperate peasant seeking validation from a king. Do not subscribe if you want to remain comfortable in your pathetic illusions. Do not follow this channel if you are afraid of the darkness required to take back your power. Subscribe, but not because I asked you to. Subscribe because you are finally done being a prey animal in a world of predators.